Let's have a trial, keep the faith. Claire McCaskill, as we've been saying all week, whether it's Jimmy Kimmel or whether it's James Comey now, it seems Donald Trump is just insistent on turning his political enemies into martyrs and heroes. And in this case, he has brought a case. He's forced his Justice Department to bring a case and has laid out all the evidence as to why any judge will likely dismiss it.
Yeah, it's certainly some irony here that I believe Donald Trump owes his presidency to James Comey. No question, when James Comey inappropriately, thinking that Hillary Clinton was going to win and wanting to cover himself in terms of being very upfront with the American people, went out of his way to break protocol and say things a week or two before the election that really hurt Hillary Clinton. It was like kind of the straw that broke the camel's back in terms of a lot of independent voters. Listen, this is a mess. And, it would take something beyond a miracle to turn it into a conviction. People need to understand what a grand jury is. A grand jury is a group of people in a room. A prosecutor comes in and tells them whatever they want to tell them. There's nobody there to say you can't say that. There's nobody there to challenge the evidence. There's no one there representing the defendant. It's just that prosecutor, which in this case is a woman who's never come near a prosecution in her life, and some narrative that she gave the people in that room. That is a far cry from beyond a reasonable doubt to a jury of your peers. In fact, that's not even in the same universe as beyond a reasonable doubt with a jury of your peers. And by the way, I think, Joe, it's important to mention the basis of this conviction. I mean, this indictment, not a conviction. And that's testimony in front of Congress. Can you imagine if the next president decided to weaponize the Attorney General's office to go after the Trump administration for lies before Congress? I mean, you had RFK lying within the scope of his testimony repeatedly. He would say one thing, and then 15 minutes later, he'd say something, deny that he said it 15 minutes before. I mean, clearly he couldn't be truthful in both instances. And there's example after example of that. If somebody just went and looked at all of the testimony before Congress by the Trump administration, they would find numerous examples that were way more egregious than anything they're alleging against James Comey. So this is really an attack on the rule of law in this country in a way that is dark, ugly, and I hope is just a footnote in history, along with many other footnotes about how this president broke things that are so important to America.
And let me do something that I've been doing over the past week. Let me talk to Republicans and just say, as I said regarding the FCC, and then later Ted Cruz and Rand Paul and others said the same. And again, what I said to my fellow Republicans when we were talking about impeaching Bill Clinton, just remember, whatever standard we use against a Democratic president will be used against a Republican president. I said at the time, it doesn't seem like a Republican will ever be in the White House again, but there will be another Republican. So be very careful about what precedent you set with your vote. It's what I said last week regarding the FCC. What precedent is set against Democrats or against people on the left or on the center left will be used in the future by a Democratic president or an independent president against Republicans. It's extraordinarily dangerous. And Willie, I mean, just so people understand, this isn't about, everything's not about Donald Trump. I remember at the end of the Bush administration on this show, people were talking about, oh, we should arrest George W. Bush for war crimes. We should start an investigation. We should do this. The Obama administration needs to do that. I said, we don't want to go down that road. Need to be careful. If they do that for what happened in the war on terror, Republicans could do the same thing when Barack Obama left office. And of course, there were incidences, I mean, an increased use of drone warfare, all of these other things that could have been used but weren't. Here, Claire brings up a great point. If you're really going to start looking at testimony before Congress and people who aren't telling the truth before Congress? First of all, Comey's already been investigated. IG report said he's fine. Poor John Durham couldn't find anything that he did wrong. Couldn't charge him. But there are a lot of people in the Trump administration that have testified before Congress that actually, if this is the new standard, this low standard, this political standard is the new standard, they need to be worried. They need to be worried that their own president is setting precedents that could be damaging not only to Democrats, but to them in the future. This is a dangerous path, not for partisan reasons, but for constitutional reasons. And it's something that I hope at least one or two Republicans will figure out, Willie, because right now they seem clueless.
And it's another case where Republicans in Congress know this is wrong and know better, but fear Donald Trump enough not to speak up against it. We heard a number of prominent Republicans cheering this yesterday, both on social media and going on television to say, finally, justice has come for James Comey, the Russia hoax, the Mad Libs that they've been using for the last decade, celebrating this. And as you say, when the shoe's on the other foot, I don't think they're going to like it quite as much. With us this morning as well as Claire, Pulitzer Prize-winning columnist, MSNBC political analyst Eugene Robinson, and NBC News legal analyst and former federal prosecutor Andrew Weissman. He previously served as general counsel of the Federal Bureau of Investigation. Jonathan Lemire still with us as well. So let's get you some of the details of how this played out yesterday. This indictment, former FBI Director James Comey, now charged with one count of making a false statement and one count of obstruction of a congressional proceeding. Comey has denied any wrongdoing. If convicted, he faces up to 5 years in prison. The case was brought by Lindsay Halligan. That's the president's newly sworn-in, hand-picked replacement for the U.S. Attorney for the Eastern District of Virginia. Career prosecutors at the office tried to advise against the charges in a memo to Halligan this week, citing a lack of evidence. The previous U.S. attorney, appointed by Donald Trump, resigned after the president said he should be fired, in part for his refusal to bring this case against Comey. He was citing insufficient evidence against Comey as well. Trump insists he fired him. Comey was one of three prominent critics the president named specifically in a social media post addressed to the Attorney General Pam Bondi, pushing her to pursue cases against them. After the indictment was handed down, the president celebrated on social media, writing, "Justice in America. One of the worst human beings this country has ever been exposed to is James Comey, the former corrupt head of the FBI." The Attorney General and Director of the FBI also posted comments last night, writing, "No one is above the law." Comey's arraignment is set for October the 9th. So, Andrew Weissman, this has been adjudicated by an inspector general from the Justice Department that found James Comey did not lie in that leak investigation involving Andrew McCabe as well. Are you surprised we got to this point, that there are two indictments, or is it just the way it was going to go once Donald Trump installed his personal attorney, a defense attorney, as the U.S. attorney?
Well, I don't think one can be surprised anymore at the ever increasing lows that exist in this administration. Remember, this is the week where we just came off of, as Joe said, the Jimmy Kimmel fiasco, which was a huge assault on the First Amendment in this country. And now we have this, which is, as Claire mentioned, just an amazing assault on the rule of law. Normally, I think Claire and I both would be saying, look, we don't know what the proof is. A grand jury has found these two charges. It is a long way before this is a actual conviction beyond a reasonable doubt. So let's sort of wait and see what the government has. That would be the normal sort of response to something like this. But here, there are two big reasons not to accord the government that benefit of the doubt. And one is the extraordinarily thin nature of the charges. And if this really is about a discrepancy, an alleged discrepancy between what James Comey testified to and what Andy McCabe has said, that actually does not exist. Andy McCabe did not say that James Comey authorized the disclosure before it happened. So that's one where Senator Cruz just got it wrong. And so if that's what the basis is here, this is going to be a dead letter faster than a New York minute. So that's sort of one. And the other is the process that was followed, where you have so many career people and even Trump's political appointee choosing to resign rather than bring this case. And so that could give everyone pause. It is so unusual for anyone to resign over something like this. And we have seen it over and over in Trump 2.0, where career people and now even a political appointee of Donald Trump himself saying, I can't stomach this. And so for both of those reasons, this seems extraordinarily thin. What I am waiting for is whether James Comey's defense team asks for an immediate trial, because if this really is as thin as we suspect, that's something they could do, and that I think could sort of blow up in Donald Trump's face, having gone this far.